So you now know what feudalism is, and it's very important that we are able to talk about what it did, why it was in place in Europe for so long, and now it's important to talk about its decline. And when something's declining, it means that it's going down. So you see we have section 2 of chapter 5 here, and the first thing we are talking about are political developments in England. So the word political is one of our 5 themes, and it deals with lawmaking, leaders of different countries, and it's going to deal with how this country is run, and people are going to begin questioning feudalism. So we see we're in England, 12th and 13th centuries. Political developments help to weaken feudalism. And we have this king, King Henry II, and he reigned for about 50 years from 1154 to 1189. And he made many legal reforms. The word reform, all that means is change. Reform is a change. And he made one reform that is very, very important. He insisted that a jury formally accuse a person for a serious crime. Before that, or then cases were tried before a royal judge. So in theory, what's important here, people could no longer simply be jailed or executed for no reason. There also had to be a court trial. So these changes or reforms strengthen the power of the royal courts. But there's one group that they did make mad, these feudal lords. And the feudal lords are the people right below the king, remember? And they kind of had all the power within their little piece of land. So by him making these legal changes and making it a little bit more rights before you go to trial, it took power away from the lords, and they didn't like that. So his effort to strengthen the authority led to a conflict with the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church gets involved, and he had this document that spelled out the king's traditions, and among them was the right to try clergy, and the word clergy here, that just means people of the church, officials of the church, accused of serious crimes in royal courts rather than in church courts. So in church courts they were protected, now they're tried in royal courts. So his actions led to much bitterness with his friend, the archbishop, and an archbishop is someone of great importance within the church. And in 1170, 4 knights, in this picture here, trying to win the king over, get his favor, killed Becket in front of the main altar of the cathedral. And his tomb became a popular destination for pilgrimage, and pilgrimage, again, is when you go somewhere. And Catholic Church then proclaimed him a saint. Real high name you can give someone. And most of these constitutions still remain in force. So then we get the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is a really important document. Henry's youngest son, John, became king. So John is soon really powerful. Made powerful enemies, by losing lands that England had controlled in France. So John is losing these lands, and many people in his own country are beginning to turn against him. He's taxing his barons a ton. Again, barons would be people right below him of high importance with lots of money. So he's taxing them a lot, and he's arresting opponents at will, ignoring the traditional rights that we had. So he's also fighting with the Catholic Church. So this guy is not popular at all. And so 1215, angry nobles force a meeting with King John. So these nobles, remember, are the higher-ups in the system of feudalism right below the king. King John is now having a meeting with them in Runnymede, and they are upset with him, and they want him to put a seal on this document called the Magna Carta, which means Great Charter. So they want him to kind of put his approval on this document called the Magna Carta. The word charter means like contract, You're not going to be able to read that. Or agreement. It would make it official. So the Magna Carta is an agreement between the nobles and the monarch. And anytime we see monarch, it means king. The nobles agreed that the monarch could continue to rule. So the nobles far outnumber the monarch. They're very upset with him. He's taxing. He's kind of losing lands. He's out of control. They could overthrow him if they wanted to. But they said that the monarch could continue to rule. But the monarch would need to observe common law and the traditional rights of the nobles and the church. So, in order to keep his position, King John would have to observe common law, which went back to the trials, etc., and then go back to the traditional rights that the nobles and the church had, because he was taking those away. So he promised to consult the nobles and the church before putting forth any taxes, and he also agreed that no free man could be jailed except for lawful judgment. So he's taking care of both here. He's making the nobles and the church feel important because he's going to talk to them before he makes decisions, and he's also going to keep the laws there for common man. So no one can be jailed without trial, etc. And this is a really important idea. No free man could be jailed except lawful judgment by his peers and the law of the land. And that's called habeas corpus, and that becomes part of English common law later down the road. So in many ways, you're probably asking yourself, why is the Magna Carta important? It only protected the rights of the privileged and the nobles, the rich. But as time passed, English people began to observe that as common law. It was foundations of rights and liberties that every person had. So as time passed, these became rights that everyone had. So that's why it's important. Now, flash forward years, King John's grandson, King Edward, made one more major step, including more people in government. And he called this governing body Model Parliament. And Model Parliament was common people, lower-ranking church officials, high-ranking church officials, and nobles. So a big melting pot of people. And this is important because these are political changes away from just one king. And it helped the decline of feudalism because there are people participating in government. So as these political changes happen, they are helping decline feudalism in two ways. Some of these changes actually gave more power to the royal authority or the king at the expense of the nobles, but others weakened feudalism by shifting power to the common people. Now the takeaway from this is this last paragraph down here. If you need to know how these political changes affected and how the Magna Carta affected feudalism, this is how. So the Magna Carta gave rights and liberties that even a monarch or king cannot violate. So it said that the monarch or king should rule, but he should rule with the advice of the people that he rules over. So it gave people a voice. And then Henry's legal changes strengthened English law and the role of judges and juries. Then finally, lastly, Edward's Model Parliament, when he made this group of people, gave voice to the common people. So all these ideas form the basis of modern democratic institutions. And the word democratic means, of the people, for the people. So we've got this move to democratic thinking. So it can be confusing here that, well, who are the nobles and who's the king, and power goes to the nobles, but then the church can't be touched. Don't lose sight in all that. Just know that these two documents helped, in the formation of Model Parliament, helped give voice to the common person and give rights that led to democratic thought.